So what are the different types of jobs available and how the jobs are configured in the classic or the ML pipelines, right? And what are the different types of lifecycle hooks we talked about, right? Deploy, pre-deploy, lifecycle hooks, pre-deploy and deploy, and how to route the traffic and post-route traffic rules, or whatever it is. And on failure, what? Hello?
Yeah, sorry to interrupt. Oscar, are you repeating the yesterday's session? Like,
No.
Because just for is there any because I didn't get the video actually. Because I was still confused in yesterday's session.
Okay. Yeah, I think so. So
because yesterday, yesterday and day before.
You please reply in that group itself. They will upload the videos because it is already storing in the cloud now. So I think they just need to move from I don't know how the sharing point of view. Okay. Just now Somashekar also asked the same thing, so I will also remind them. Okay. But I'll inform Ravi that. Okay, I'll ask them to upload it today itself, both the videos, today's and yesterday's one. Actually, that guy who's responsible, who's taking care of this thing, I think he's on leave. That's why I think maybe there.
Yeah, her name is Pranavi. I just pinged her to upload the videos. Maybe just waiting for a response. Let us see.
No, they'll upload. I'll also remind them. See, yesterday what we discussed generally, what are the different types of jobs and how we can control all the different options we have in the jobs. Like we talked about lifecycle hooks and we talked about the deployment strategies, 3 deployment strategies, right? One is run once and rolling deployment. Don't get into too much. Just remember that there are different types of deployments. One is run once, rolling deployment, and canary deployment. Probably in future sessions you will understand better, because once we do the complete deployments, maybe I will show one deployment probably in Jenkins, how to integrate with Jenkins, right? The Jenkins is nowhere related to your Azure DevOps, right? But that is a third-party tool, how to integrate. Probably I'll explain that. That time you will find out, you'll understand better. So 3 types of deployments we discussed, right? One is run once and rolling deployment and canary deployment. What is the difference? Since Anand, I think Anand was saying it was not clear, I'm just repeating it, otherwise I'll not. Rolling deployment is like deploying in a percentage wise, right? Let's say you have 100 VMs. This is again applicable for the VMs most of the time. If you have 100 VMs, first apply for 10% of the VMs. If everything is okay, then apply the remaining 10%, like that. Stage by stage, you will deploy and you will cover all the servers, whatever you have. Same concept, whereas a canary deployment, but it is mostly used for the Kubernetes clusters. And your pods will be deployed like first 10 pods, next 20 pods, next 30 pods, like that. So what is the advantage of this? The impact in case of any issues will be limited to a certain users, not for everyone. I mean, certain systems, right? That way, that is the advantage. And what are the different types of jobs we discussed about? Agent jobs, serverless jobs, and container jobs, all those things we discussed, right? And different, for each level, what are the syntaxes and how to specify all those things. That's what we discussed, right? And how to deploy for the containers. There are different ways, right? Your targets can be VMs, containers, many things, right? So how to specify if it is a container within the operating system, like you have your base image, within that you have your container images, maybe like, right? Nginx is example. You can consider any image for that, sorry, container for that. Okay. Different options we have seen that. So probably if you go through with the video, you'll understand again better. And in case if you have a dependency, how to specify, and if there is no dependency, how to run the jobs in parallel. If there is a dependency, how to run the jobs in sequence mode. Like depends on. This is the option you need to specify. As long as there is no dependency, you are always you can use the parallel execution method. So that will save your time and overall your turnaround time will be reduced, right? If you run it in the sequence mode, it will take time, right? Because the wait time will be more. Whereas if you run the things in parallel mode, the obviously will save that time. That's where actually we do more fine tuning all those things as a DevOps engineer, actually, right? How to reduce the turnaround time and how can we how can we execute things on parallel if there is no dependency. All these things we have to analyze and try to implement and give some business value for the companies. That's what we do. And we also talked about workspaces, right? So for every run, there will be artifacts which will be saved, right? So where are they saving? And do we really need to maintain all the artifacts for years together? It is really not required, right? So for that, we talked about our retention policies, how to manage the workspace or the artifacts, how many days you want to keep your artifacts or the logs, many things, right? These days, it is becoming like a mandatory thing to maintain the logs and all, especially with the security stuff, right? We will maintain actually at least for 5 to 10 years the logs. So any point in time, actually the guidelines are like a minimum 5 years to maintain. So in case of any issues, anytime anyone can validate that. So it should be good to maintain the audit logs, basically logs for auditing purpose, right? We talked about the retention policies, how to apply the retention policies, how many days, all those things. This is what we talked about yesterday. So to continuation of the same topic on the jobs, deep dive into the jobs. So we will talk about variables today. Basically variables and I mean, we discussed about the variables in previous scenarios, but we'll get into in detail how to create a variables, how to create a variable groups, all those things, right? There are two things in the variables. Library is a collection of shared, build and release assets for a project. Let's say you are connecting to a database. So if you connect for a database, there will be common things which are required for to connect to the database, right? Let's say your database name, your credentials, URLs, which are common, right? But assume that you have you may not be maintaining a number of databases, right? You will have database, I mean the database instance. Within that, you will have different database names. Like what we have an organization. Within that, we have a number of projects. Similarly, I'm just giving an example. So similarly for the database, there will be different types of database names. That's all. But your instance may be the same. So you may be connecting to a different database name based on your project name, right? In that case, do we really need to manage or maintain an n number of variables? It's not required. So what I'm trying to say, let me show you that you can understand it. You know what is variable, right? How to use I'm on mute. Sorry, I was talking on mute. If you take any project, go to your project. Within that, you have pipelines. Within the pipelines, you have something called library. So this is where you will you can define your your variable groups and secure files. So we'll talk about secure files is not only secret files where you can upload here and use it. We'll talk about that. But variable groups, how to create a variable groups, right? Let's say we take the same example of add a variable group. Let's say something DB connections, right? Just save this. Where is that? Sorry, I forgot to add. What are the common things like what we create generally, right? Maybe the server is common, right? Server, right? There will be equivalent server like my server, something. And add one more, which is like database. It's again my DB. And what is the common things? User, right? Username. Say my user. And when you are adding password, you have an option here. Just lock it. Otherwise, it is visible to everyone. So just when you lock it, then enter. This is my password. I have entered, but we cannot see that. So even when you are using, you should use like a parameter. I'll talk about that, how to use a parameter option. So example, we have created a variable group called DB connections, right? So within that, I have added a variables, 4 variables. Now, how to use this into our pipelines? So you can use these things in your build pipeline or your release pipelines, right? Anywhere you can use it. So you can again control this here. You can clone this group to, let's say there is some other project. I'm just giving an example of 4 variables. There may be a case of 50 variables. Instead of maintaining another 50 variables, you clone this and reuse that somewhere in our other project. And you have full option of controlling here the security, who has to use that, right? We can add the users, and we'll talk about that, how to use the security next session. Permissions, resource, there is something called resource security. So we'll talk about that, right? Again, pipeline level you can have. There are multiple options by using this resource groups. So how to link this to your pipelines? Go to pipelines. Let's say you have a pipeline, edit this. When you are adding a pipeline, you have something called variables, right? Along with the tasks here. See here, variable groups. So these are the pipeline variables which are inbuilt, right? Now you have something which is customized. So now I'm not finding here anything. So there is an option to link your variable group here. So by using this option, you can link whatever the groups you have created just now, right? Under the library. This is what we have created, right? You just link it. Link now. Now, if you see here, you got your variables, right? DB connections. These are the variables you have now. So you can use these variables now into your project or pipeline, wherever it is. The same thing can be done in release pipeline as well. Just save this, right? Here, if you go to release pipeline, again, when you edit the release pipeline, here you have variables. Again, same thing. Go to variable groups, link your variable group. Right now, there is nothing here. If you see here, until and unless if you link, why I'm able to link here, because I'm the administrator here. So that's why I'm able to link. Otherwise, you can control the access who can use your variables, variable groups. Let's say you have your link. See, again, you have control here. Whether you want to use these variable groups for all the release or stage by stage. Let's say you have QA stage, development stage, or the production stage. There will be a set of variables where you need to use only for the production. So you can restrict again here by selecting the stages. You can select whichever stage you want, whether QA, QA2, based on your pipeline stages, whatever you have defined. So you can again control at the stage level also. Where do you want to use this? This is another controlling option, right? So let's say for now, we'll go ahead and link it. So now these variables are available for my complete pipeline, right? Is it clear? Any doubt in this? How to create a variable group and what is the advantage or use of the variable group? I'll talk about how to use the variable group in your pipelines, right? So grouping, it's a reusability. That is a biggest advantage basically, right? We can use that. Reusability is the major advantage. That's the biggest advantage of this. What is that? So how to use your variables in your working with Azure pipeline supports 3 different ways to different variables. It is like macros, template expressions, and runtime expressions. So when to use what, how to use it. The syntax is different based on your requirement. Basically, if you see here, if it is a macro, simple example is dollar. How we have used our variables, dollar variable, right? And if it is a template, I hope you remember, right? When we have created our templates, AML templates, right? Do you remember? We have used something called like this variables, right? Pipeline. So repose. What did we change here? Did we change anything here? Nothing, right? Where is it? Okay. We have created something called template build.yaml. If you see this file, we have used parameters, right? We have defined our parameters here. So how are we calling or using those? Using a parameters dot whatever the build configuration. Under the parameters, we have defined our build configuration well. So now how to use this? Use this parameters dot your build configuration. Same way here. Variables dot whatever the variable name. So when it comes to templates, you need to use like this, right? Is it clear? Okay, I will do one thing. I will create a simple pipeline on how to use the variables. Pipeline or use the existing pipeline itself. Go here and edit this. So this is what we have, but I don't want other what is it? So just simply disable for time being, right? I don't want to run all these things. For my intention right now is just to disable. This is how you can run individual steps also. Let's say there is something called rebuild, right? When your incremental build is set. So when you have an incremental build, in that case, you may have to do a specific step alone. So in that case, you have, let's say you have 10 tasks here. Out of 10 tasks, you want to execute only single task, then disable the other things and execute only that specific task, whichever is related to your incremental build. Though it is not relevant to this, but just since we got the disable option here, I'm just telling that point here. Okay. Now here, if you want to use your parameters, assume that this is not required now for you. I will keep it back. Right. How will you specify your variables? Echo, right? Echo is a command to specify, right? If you remember, that's what we have used earlier also, right? What is our server name? Server equal to within the braces, you need to specify your. I think this is what we have given in our variable groups, right? So again, echo. What are the other parameters we have used?
Database,
Yeah,
username.
I mean, I can just show one actually. Yeah. DB name equal to, you can assign like this in the script. So automatically the value will be read from this parameter and it will assign that value, whatever, right? Let's say, what I'm trying to show here is, this is the example. So in case if it is a macro, you have to use dollar variable. In case if it is a template, use the dollar of double braces variables dot the variable name. Example. We can just use the server itself. In case if it is a macro. Within the quotes, use this like dollar within the braces. Variables dot your server. So you have to use like this. Okay. Just save and queue. Should not take much time because we have disabled other tasks. Okay, maybe this is not the right way of using it, but ultimately that is how you will you can define your variables, because it is considering like a command, though we are specifying as assigning here. So maybe in later sessions I will discuss about this, and but this is how you can define and you can use your variables, right? Server equal to my server, you can see here, right? This is the value we gave. If you go and change your, let's say you are using in 100 places, maybe in 10 projects, your server name is changed. You have migrated from one system to another system. The URL has been changed or the IP address has been changed. Now, if you have used in an individual project level, how difficult it is to go to everywhere and modifying it. And that is error prone also, going and modifying everywhere. The template one only is giving problem because that is considered like a command. But other one is, you can see the value of here. Let's say now if you go and that is your pipelines, library, DB connections.
I think you created in release pipeline.
Oh, I have created in release pipeline.
Yeah, I think, yeah.
Yeah, I think this is where it is going actually. Yeah, it is waiting for here. And this is where we have it. Variables, variable groups, DB connections. Server name we are using, right? See, my server. If you go and modify here in the variables one place, automatically that will be reflected here. So everywhere it will reflect basically. Right? It will automatically reflect into the respective places wherever you have used your variable. You're getting it, right? What is the advantage of declaring like a global one and using it everywhere, the variable name? It is always a good practice to manage in the form of variables actually, right? So whenever there is a change is constant in our DevOps environment, right? So whenever you want to modify something, just instead of modifying in 100 places, you just go and modify one place, which will automatically inherit in the respective places wherever you have used your variables. That is the biggest advantage of Clear how to use it? Same thing you can use in our release pipelines also, wherever it is, wherever you want. Again, the scope, just now we are talking, right? Where do you want to define your variable, whether you want at a global level, which is called root level, or stage level, or job level. If you define your variables at the root level, then that can be used across for all the stages. In case if you want to restrict that at a stage level, define the variables at a stage level itself. Or if you want to restrict further at a job level, just declare the variables completely local to that job, right? Like this. So you need to specify variables, global variable value, whatever it is. This, if you define something here, that is root level, which is applicable for all the stages, right? In case if you want to restrict only for the job level, define variables within the job level that is usable only within the steps of that job, not for other jobs. You cannot use whatever you have defined here, that job level variable in this job too. So you have to define within this job itself. Okay. Clear? So how to use your variables in scripts? See, the script is not fixed. So you can use your batch script, you can use your Perl script, or you can use your PowerShell or Bash in case you are Linux servers, right? So it can be any environment. So in that case, so to create a classic release pipeline and stage variables, you define and manage these variables in pipelines also. This is how you can, that's what I say, nothing much here. See, this is important. So how to use your variables based on your programming or the language. In case if it is a batch script, use a percentage followed by the value, whatever it is, and end with the percentage. In case if it is a PowerShell, use like this. Dollar within the forward brackets, environment, whatever it is. If it is a bash, use this like this, right? Is it clear? Any doubts in this? How to use? Now, what is this? Set a secret value. Assume that you are writing your AML pipeline. Go to your pipelines. Where is the AML pipeline? Repos, pipelines, AML pipeline, right? I did this. Assume that you want to declare a variable called password. Okay. Just an example. If you declare password equal to my password, something. This is the right way to declare your passwords.
It should be encrypted, Bhaskar.
Exactly. So it should be encrypted. One is encrypted, right? Or the lock option. So you can define variables like what we have defined in the group level, or here something called variables for the AML I'm talking about. Click on this, create a new variable. Let's say this is the password. See here. Keep this value as secret. So you need to use always the secret keys for the passwords. Otherwise, there is a high possibility of getting into a vulnerabilities, or when you go for a scanning, obviously it will throw an error. It will report a major critical issue, right? Passwords always you should be in secret mode or encrypted mode with the key, whatever the 256 or whatever the key you want, right? If you enter, it is done. And let user override this value when they're running. That's okay. Here, Again, same thing what we discussed, how to use in the different based on your script. If it is a batch script, use this percentage followed by the value of this. Automatically, this value will be used over there. If it is a PowerShell, dollar followed by the environment, whatever it is. If it is a bash, dollar password. This we are using already. So like this, we have to use your, in case if it is a passwords, always make sure to use the secret key. Save this, right? Here again, you can use dollar, whatever it is. Dollar password. That's all. And nobody knows, right? Even if they try to, even when you run the script, even the logs, it will say just start. That's all. Nobody knows how to use that. Clear how to use this? Again, just to give an example. This is what we have done. Navigate to YAML file, drop clear variables button, add update, whatever it is. We talked about variable groups, right? This variable tasks. So how to define, how to declare these things. There is something called secure files. Let's say you want to have your, have you heard about Vault anytime? Maybe I will cover that also on demand, like when the situation comes, right? Basically, you can save your secrets over there actually. So that is more secured way of using your sensitive information. Basically. So we can upload those secure files. Again, here you have an option under the library. This I don't want. Here, just add a secure file, whatever it is. You can drag and drop that files. Basically, you can maintain your that secret keys over there, the file, and use that. So obviously, you can use the same thing, that secrets in your pipelines. The secure file library is to store files such as signing certificates. Have you heard about code signing? So generally, if you take any binaries, whatever is going to the end user, so that's the respective company has to certify that skill, right? So this is the authorized object, so it is safe to use, right? That way, those things and all we can manage here. Again, how to certify the name using the certificate option, and the secure file name, whatever the file name, PEM files basically. Whenever you PEM files, basically, if you are using a putty, right? Example, if you want to connect to a Linux server, so you need some certificate to connect that, right? So that is the PEM files, basically a secret key which will have the n number of characters which you cannot even understand that, right? Using those secret keys, also we can connect to the respective things. This is overall how to use your variables and libraries. Now we'll do continuation to that. We'll talk about there are different resources to run our pipelines, right? We have seen the resources, like, right? A resource is anything used by a pipeline that lives outside the pipeline itself. Secure files is one resource. Variable groups, what we have just seen, is one. Service connection, this we have already seen in one of the session. Agent pools, I have seen that. Other repositories, containers, these are the different resources to execute or to run your pipeline. It can, based on the situation, you will be using one of these resources. Without these resources, nothing will be there. There is only one jobs, few jobs, right? Like agentless jobs. It's where we have seen in the previous sessions, right? So I may not be explaining all, but I will show you one of them. The same thing is applicable for all the resources wherever you are using. Assume that if agent pool, how to control the permissions, the usage of the resource basically, right? Otherwise, what happens? Assume that you have a service connection. We have created one service connection, right? Hello world app, something we have created. If it is available for everyone, then there is a high possibility of misusing that, right? So in that case, how to control your resources, basically, with what? Let me show you directly. Go to project. I'll take one example, and the same thing you can apply for all the resources. Do we have what we created? We have created a service connection. We have created agent pools also. This is what hello world app. This we have created, right? If you go here, this is one resource. Under this, you have an option of security. So here, basically, you can control who can use your this service, specific service, right? Or resource, you can say. Right now, I'm the administrator. I can use this. If you want to add a specific user, there are different roles here. One is user, and one is reader. Something. Let me add a user. Say I don't have other users. So yeah, user and reader. So user is the one who can actually have permissions to use this specific thing. Reader, he can just review the logs, so he cannot use it. So he can use this if the specific user is assigned to a group called role called user, then he can use that. Whereas if you assign like a reader only, in case if something is available with that or linked to this resource, those logs and all can be viewed by this reader groups or members who are part of this role. I hope you are getting. User, he can use it. Reader, he can only read it. That's all. Whatever the information is relevant to that specific thing. I have already, so we don't have any user because other account means we have at least a couple of users. This account maybe I'll create it. Okay, is it clear how to control your resource permissions? Right, the same thing. Just now, what we have created our library, right? This is example of any resource. Let's say go to your again agent pools. You have security again here, where you can control list of users, right? Again, if you go to just now, we have created something called what is that? Groups we have created, pipelines, library. Again, if we click on this, you have security here. Again, add the user. Right now, only Bhaskar.a3 can use it, right? This is what I was talking about. There are different resources. So for each resource, one is secure file, variable group, service connections, agent pools, anything, any resource which are you're using. So every resource is actually, you can have a restrictions on who can use your resource, right? Most of the time, the respective teams will come to us for adding or removing. Basically, we will control most of the time this security part, right? It will be in our control. If you create a pipeline, so how to, this is okay, or what we are using. But whereas if you see your pipelines, right? Go here again. Go to your project settings, service connections, click on this. So go to security, right? Here we have another section called pipeline permissions. Whatever we have here, that is like classic one, whatever we are using. So here, right now, what is there? Any pipeline may use this resource, but you don't want to do that. How to do that? Whereas you don't have option to here, right? To control. So basically now any pipeline can, by default, when you create a service connection, that will be allowed for any pipeline, right? In pipeline, we can use the subscription and all, right? So that way. So here, in case if you want to restrict this, restrict permissions here. If you restrict, then until and unless if you add a specific user, then only that specific user can use this resource. Okay, just try this. See, no permitted pipelines now. Right now, this is important. This resource cannot be used in an ML pipeline until at least one pipeline has permission. What does it mean? Until and unless if you add at least one pipeline, then only this resource can be utilized in your pipelines. We have our pipelines, right? Say, where is our pipeline? Pipelines, this is our AML pipeline. If you go and edit this, you can control basically. Let's say, so where are we using any subscription? Test connection. Let's say, I'll show you that also. To uncomment this. I hope you remember to comment and uncomment multiple lines. Right. If you click on this settings, you'll get an option here. Can you see subscription here? So here, again, you can control. This is a, since we have already used it, we have connection here. Assume that if you don't have this HAW, whatever it is, I can use this now. Since we have enabled over there to use the pipeline, now it is working. Is it clear? I will uncomment this or I'll leave this service. I'll go back to where there are two ways. Right now, what I'm trying to show here is just now what we have seen is a pipeline. So you can use in AML pipelines resources using this option under this settings, whatever it is here. For every section, we'll get a settings, right? So under the settings, you can select the respective resource. That is one way of using it. Another way of using it is go to your service connection. Let's say click on this and security here. Again, you have an option to add a pipeline, right? Or you have, if you want to open it for all the pipelines, just open access. So again, no restrictions. This specific resource can be utilized now, any pipeline, but I want to restrict it. How to do that? I want to use only the pipeline which is used by Hello World app. This is one I have. We have. Assume you have 10 out of 10, you can add only 2. In case if the requirement to use this resource only by 2 pipelines, select only those 2. Add that. So automatically this is added here. Now this has the following YAML pipelines are allowed to use this resource now. So you can execute your pipelines under this resource. Right? Any doubts in this? Is it clear? How to control? Or is it confusing? Hope the recording is on, right? Recording is on.
Yeah, Bhaskar, actually, in this case, like which access level will take precedence? Is it a service? Is it a project level or the pipeline level?
It is always the global rule. Always the preference will be for the local.
Local. Okay. Okay.
If the permissions are defined, example I'm just giving at a job level and stage level and global level, root level. Always the preference goes to the job level first. In case if nothing is defined at the job level, then whatever is defined in the stage level, that will be considered. If nothing is defined on the stage level, then whatever is defined on the root level, that will be considered. So this is how we can control. This is another option where we can control at the project level. So you can only the current project share service connection with the other projects. So if you want to add another project, let's say I have my test project where we are not working at all. Whatever we are doing is Hello World app. If I want to share this resource for another project, I can add. Since I have only 2 projects under this, I'm getting only one. One I'm already using, another one is displaying here. Have multiple projects, automatically will the projects will be displayed here. So this is how we can control the access at different resources. Same thing, whatever we discussed, this is applicable for all the resources, whatever we have. Any doubts? If it is
But by default,
basically
it will
what
be, Bhaskar, by
yes,
default, it will be no permissions has been set. So explicitly on the project level, we are providing
you have to
the
control. That is one
restricting.
of the critical thing which we have to take care of, right? So in real time, there is a high possibility of misusing or by mistake, people will use our resource. So that may impact your releases, right? Maybe your estimation is for certain limit, but if I don't restrict, anyone can use. Generally, people what will do, if you go to open source and try to use whatever is available, will take, right? So that way, so people will misuse that. So it is always highly recommended, or it is mandatory thing, of course, to restrict the permissions. It is one of the major role of actually our, we will control actually those things. Okay. So this is how you can control same thing, whatever we discussed right here. If you create a pipeline with the classic editor, then the user creating or editing the pipeline, same thing, whatever it is. Then there is something called service hooks. What is service hook? So generally what happens, if you assume that your pipeline is executing for few hours, 4 to 5 hours, out of that build will be 2 to 3 hours. You really can't sit and monitor by looking at the monitor for what is happening. Okay, next step it is going or not right now. So obviously there will be some service which should take care of that, right? Instead of we sitting and monitoring and waiting for the completion or the logs. Okay, what is the next step is happening, all those things. So creating service hooks, basically generating the alerts, right? For the situations wherever it is, like on demand, on failure, on warning, or whatever it is, it can be anything. So using the service hooks, we can achieve that. Okay. One of the first requests many people have when working in a system that performs asynchronous actions is to have the ability to get notifications or alerts. Is what. So at least you should get a notification alerts for the actions, whatever is happening, right? The service hook can be applied for many places like build and release. It can be a Bamboo, Jenkins, Migrate, Clark, or whatever it is, right? Or collaborative tools like Cloduck, right? Or HipChat, anything, or customer support. So there are different places where you can apply your service hooks. Let's say you have your storage. You can create your storage, right? Or the Jenkins, maybe for that. Whenever you want to generate alert or the notification, right? You can write your service hooks. Using the service hooks, you can define your rules on which condition, on which scenario you want to be notified, right? Those things we can define using service hooks, like webhooks also, right? And Azure Service Bus. When you are integrating our Azure storage, I was talking about storage, right? So maybe I can show one of them either for now what we can show. Azure storage. Okay, let us get into that. Is it clear what is the use of service hook? Generally, for any action, getting a notification or sending an alert to the respective users, we can achieve by creating the service hooks. maybe what I can do. Let's say how storage accounts, some storage accounts. This I have my storage account, for example. There will be something called queues here. Here, in case of any action, whichever is happening on the DevOps portal, I should get a notification or alert here in this my port in this portal. This is one scenario. Or in case if you are using a Jenkins, you can create your alerts. Basically, you can generate the alerts for some completion. Let's say you can pull request or the build completion or the deployment completion, anything. Let us go to your project settings. Where are we? Hello world app. Project settings. There will be something called service hooks. So you can create your service hooks here. Create a subscription. These are the different services for which you can create your service hooks. It can be Grafana. It can be a Bamboo. It can be like, in case if you are using a Slack, you can integrate it to Slack. In case if you are using Microsoft Teams, you can generate alert or send a notification to that as well. There should be Slack also. Here, Slack and Microsoft Teams or Jenkins, right? Assume you are using a Jenkins server here. On which status you want to do that? On build completion or code push or pull request or release deployment? When do you want to raise this alert or the notification? Or under that, on which build pipeline? They are the different pipelines we have. So for which you are creating this service hook, you can create like this. And build status, whether on complete or failed or whatever it is. Let us take, if we take a Slack, consider that we'll have more options basically. See here, code pushed, pull request created. See, most of the time people will not be sitting and monitoring, right? There will be a few things. Where will you communicate most of the time with your teammates? The Teams, right? Microsoft Teams. Or in case we are using Slack, which is linked to your projects, again, through Slack, we'll communicate most of the time. So generating alerts or the notifications to that specific tool can be achieved by using this service hooks. Is it clear or any doubt in this? Again, in case this is the Azure storage, you'll have again pull request, all those things here, pull request. If in case if some comment is there on pull request, even for that, you can send a raise alert and send a notifications to the people who are many things. See here. For every scenario, every condition, every task, we can create a alert service hook and notify to the respective user. You really no need to sit here for the DevOps portal and check what is happening here, right? The old app, let's say, and this and alert should be raised for any scenario. Storage account name. What storage account name we have? This is our storage account name. And storage account key. There will be key. Can you see key here? Access key. Show this and copy. Copy to clipboard. Is this queue name? Maybe you have to create a queue here. Where are the queues? Add a queue. Demo queue. Okay. We have our demo queue now, right? Use the demo queue. demo queue. And maybe 30 seconds, you need to hold this. Rest all you leave, just test the connection. Succeeded, close, finish. Okay. Now go to your queues. Click on this queue. In case of any alerts, those things will be displayed here. Let us go and for which pipeline we have created. This one, right? Go to your Hello World app, pipeline. This one, right? Run the pipeline. Agent job, just wait for this. I should get a notification as soon as this gets over here. Let me see. See here, I got my message. Build complete. Earlier there was no message, right? So I got the notification. Why? Because we have enabled or created a service hook, right? So this is how we can create your service hooks and send a notifications or alerts to the user. Is it clear? Just showed
It's
one.
just
Maybe
a
I
kind
will
of
show you one
notification
more
method.
when. Sorry.
Just a kind of alerts.
Yes, alerts.
Service hook is just alerts, sending
Alerts.
the email alerts.
Yes, yes. And you have so many options, right? Whether if something is happening on push or someone commented on whatever the pull request you have created or the build completion, or once the deployment is done, you want to notify, assume that the deployment is done, the reports are available. Maybe you need to communicate that to the QA team. So the QA can validate that report, whether that working or not. So you don't need to sit and do things here. You can automate.
Okay.
Is it clear?
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah. Any doubts? This is the major things on the jobs level. We'll talk about so maybe the QA stuff and the kind of the test cases maybe in the next sessions.
Bhaskar?
Yes.
So like, see one ID where which is already using the Azure DevOps, like another ID where so we need to add the organization level on it, like end of because my free trial is